Well, the whole conversation about doping in Kenya continues for those who care about this country. I'm passionate about Kenya. I think, as you can tell, it's an ongoing conversation that I'm going to delve into a certain length and with a certain effort and intensity and a focus. I think because there's something that I think we are not grappling with it well. I think yes, I know Kenya has priorities. Kenya as in a place where history and the struggle for liberation is taking center stage. The young people, 60% unemployment rate in my country of Kenya is a pandemic, is a major economic problem. If you look at the delivery from the government or the people in place or the system in place, it's been really criminal in nature how they've not lived up to the mandate and the promises. And I can say it's just promises. I think politicians are good at that, the craft of politics. That's not really solve Kenyan problems around the world, but is the conveyor. I think is the flight in town, is the bust in town, is the messiah in town, is the political arena. And I think sometimes that can hold people hostage. It can hold them subdued and they bow down to the leadership, the honorables and dishonorables that take these spaces. And so when it comes to the doping world, the doping sphere we are living in Kenya, I'm not going to mince words when it comes to staying focused and trying to find a new place that Kenya can reinvent itself. Is there hope? In my last episode, it looked hopeless, and still does. I don't think that has changed since I last spoke to you. What has changed for me is to kind of have a holistic look on Kenya as a country. And I think that really helps to see, because one of the things that really troubles me in Kenya, as a person who has been a very good, trying to be a good student in understanding Kenya, and I don't claim to understand Kenya to the as a whole, as in all the layers of the Kenya complexity. I think what troubles me in Kenya is the lack of focus and the lack of discipline in seeing how we can channel our efforts, our knowledge, our capacity in the right way without embezzling, without stealing from that same process. And I think that has been permitted, it's been allowed, it's been perpetuated, it's become normal. So that when we speak of doping in athletics, it needs sober-minded people. I talk of Barnabas' career that I have high regard for, Paul Tergard, I think they might redeem, they might give us a sense of hope. Because I think people are underestimating this corruption, these scandals, and where it is taking us. I think we downplay things in many societies. We've downplayed environmental disasters that have come and then now they're in the middle of our lives. Some people downplayed COVID-19. Some people have downplayed the plight of young people in Kenya and the promises of tomorrow that has never been seen and it's never been accomplished, and it's just one of those mantras, some of those things that people use to get elected into office. Even churches talk of leaders of tomorrow. So I'm gonna stay focused on the doping and try to see whether you can see the sense and the urgency of the whole matter, because it is urgent. As an athlete myself growing up and how it has given empowered me to be in this space, I think when we speak, we try to not we can't have a conversation on how we can change the narrative, how we can change the trajectory. Because where I sit, the trajectory of Kenya as a country that has prided itself on athletics for a long time historically, and the fact that we pride, we talk of how it is athletics that has made certain homes to be the home of champions, only to be exposed as a scandalous system. Uh, we have people elected into office as a champion of poor and mama mboga, only to be scandalous and to be liars and perpetuators of that, and then they hold on to power. And I think one of the things that I wrestle with a great deal myself is how young people, poor young people in my country, have been exploited. They could be victims, they could be compliances themselves, they could be playing their part. But I think the root cause of some of these issues for me is greed, desperation, uh, the lack of anything else that can give them hope. I, for one, when I look back at my own life and how it was athletics, it was running, and now I've talked about running giving me the wings, the eagle's wings, so to speak, because I was a chicken. You know how chickens behave in the cage. Is you expose your backside, chicken will poke it. And some of these young people, not to make fun of it, is that they don't have anything else. So you have a community, you have a region, you have a country that there's no jobs, there's nothing else going on, there's no hiring. And if there's hiring, it is full of corruption to get it, it's nepotism, it is scamish, it is extortion after extortion, either with money or body. I don't want to talk about body, but that's how things work sometimes in these systems. Um, and so now we're living in a state that is being policed by the outside world in doping. Agents have been sent to infiltrate those training places where Kenyans train. We're talking of the high altitude. So it's not just altitude now, or altitude that gets Kenyans. It is not the raw talent that people can trust anymore. Because, like I've talked about, we've seen the Olympics, how the parity, in the world, how the evenness of competition has come. You have the best middle distance coming from Norway. How is he training? Is it dope? I don't know. Is Jakob Engbresten in some juice? Was Mo Farah in juice? He was allegedly with Alberto Salazar, with his prodigy and product from Jesuit High School here. What was his name? Galen Robe was in juice. Is Eliud Kipchoge clean? Is he clean? Is Captain Faith Kipyegon clean? Those are hard questions for Kenyans to wrestle with. For me even to say that gives me chills, because we live in a very complex world and truth have been compromised. Self-deception is rooted deep. Um, so that who is who can you trust? You know, I say this because if a pilot could ask, what's the truth, flippantly, when he was standing in front of the truth teller, the master of truth, the one who is the truth, and he could ask that flippant question arrogantly, what's the truth? I would ask the same thing even now. Do we even know the truth? So when it comes to doping, do we even know who is doping and who is juice and who is not? Is the system fair enough? In a Premier League, in Spain, La Liga, in other sporting world, in the Olympics, there's these rings of unity. You see those rings in the Olympics. In Premier League, there's no room for racism before every game, because racism has plagued that country. How black people are seen in the big stage, and how you go to Spain, people are chanting and throwing bananas on black athletes, and the idea of you're a monkey because you're black. Um, and now in Kenya, we have these doping scandals and how it's infiltrated and is mutated and is metastasized into the athletic world to a point whereby we don't even know what level. Is it level 1 of metastasized? Is it level 1 metastasized? Is it level 2? What are we treating in Kenya? What are we looking at as far as doping is concerned? And the world has come and doing prognosis, diagnosis, and the patient in Kenya, including the people who are in the system, are they cooperating with the doctor, the prognosticators, the people who are asking these hard questions? Are we clean Kenyans? Are we? How cooperative are we? How open are we and transparent? How vulnerable are we willing to go to rule out doping in Kenya? That's a hard question for Kenyans, I think, and it's hard for anybody. I mean, if you remember West German, until they became one German, people talk of it was a science project that they used among athletes to juice them up and make them, look superhuman beings to win any medal. China, it is said in the 90s, they had a state-sponsored system to make great Chinese athletes that came and they rose to the highest. In fact, the 1500 meters before Faith Kipyegon, yes, it was owned by Tirunesh Dibaba. But before Tirunesh Dibaba, it was a Chinese athlete who had that world record, 1500. 10,000 meters was a Chinese woman before Beatrice Chebet. And those scandals of doping and performance-enhancing drugs that were perpetuated and orchestrated and manufactured by the state, namely China and Russia, came to a point whereby the world said, you know what, you as a country, you are banished. I mean, I don't think China has been banished the way Russia was, because Russia at a certain point, let's face it, it was a doped nation. And that's why they've been banned from Olympics and other things that have followed geopolitical issues. So I'm talking here as a Kenyan because I went to that point last time, and I still want to stay there because I think we are at a crossroad. We are at a very critical path as a nation, looking at doping. I think to look the other way, to look at it the way we've faced corruption in our country, the way we've even spoken about it, the way we've stood against or even say enough of corruption in the country. I don't think it's going to withstand the time. I don't think it's going to pass the test. It will not pass even the lowest level of testing. The fact that we don't have funding. We've dismantled the funding system. The only time we say we are fighting is when the other day, I think had the CS, Mr. Murkonen, the CS who was saying, we are going to combat doping in our country and clean ourselves up of these scandals and make sure we are raw talent, the pride of Kenya is restored. These are the same people who, when they were in another ministry, spoke of reclaiming our airport and rebuilding it to the international standard. As he was speaking at the airport, JKA, this is the same guy. It rained and it was leaking in the roof at Jomo Kenyatta. So I don't have a lot of hope when it comes to these politicians when they speak. My hope is laying squarely on athletes. What do Kenyans want to be known for? That we bought ourselves a Prado with doping money? That we build a house with doping money? That we have medals around our necks from Olympics and other champions because of doping money? That's the hard question for Kenyans to face right now. That the plethora of scandals, to have so many scandals of doping in a country, to be known as a doping nation. In fact, you can go to some discussion chats that I go to on athletics in Kenya. People don't trust Kenyans anymore. They don't. I have a friend whom I won't mention his name here. The other day when I told him this record was broken, he says, "What do you mean it was broken? What do you mean it was broken? Uh, were they tested? Have they what bribed the system to make sure they're in good standing?" I'm saying when you start to have these scandals after scandals of prestigious or top athletes around the world in marathon and even people like Isbell, keep her up, to even come to a point whereby he was found wanting after winning gold medal in Beijing. To have Jemima, the lady Jemima whom I talk about, the marathon lady from Brazil, being banned for 8 years. To have Kiptum, the Boston Marathon runner, being found wanting. Not only that, the list is so long, the names are so big that it makes you scratch your head. Um, I, I think I'm really, these doping scandals in Kenya have raised a lot of alarm for me. That even right now, as I stand here, I just wonder who is the next one. Because at this rate, it's about who is the next poster child of doping in Kenya. That's how fast things are moving. Because in Russia, we know for a fact it was a matter of time. And even after Olympics, people are like, oh, whatever. There's another, of course, we are not the only ones. There was an Algerian who won 1500 meters in London, and he was found wanting because of doping. I forgot his name. So I'm not saying Kenyans are the only ones, but right now, as we speak, I think we are the Russians of doping, if you want to say that. And so there's this agency that people talking about. I think one of the things that I'll go back to is talking about after COVID-19. Somebody's suggesting that after COVID-19 and the demise of our Kenya economy, and I've talked about 60% of young people being unemployed and having nothing. In fact, there are stories coming out, like I've talked about, there's some stories that I think speak to this fact that most of the time when you go to these training villages, these training camps in Kenya, you'll find some very poor young people trying to make it. They are just trying to run every morning, train as hard as they can. I have a young man in this a YouTube channel of mine that I know he has worked so hard just to make ends meet in running, so to speak. Just to be, even to have a tank top, to have a beep on your chest, to have shoes. And this desperation, this desperate environment, and the fact that the system does not even support them that much. The national system, the trickle-down help is barely there. So these are desperate people, and all they see is marathon. You go to a marathon I spoke about, you get this massive amount of money. You might be tempted to do everything, even if it means cheating, to get that much to come and save your community and your family and yourself. I'm not condoning, I'm not approving that. Some of us, I've talked about Mike Boyd, how he laid a foundation in place, a project in place where they are trying to pipeline athletes who have very high scholarly aptitude and performance in school, but the athletic career is the same level, and they bring them over here. Barnabas Kuriri has helped a lot of students come to America. I spoke about in the last one. But that's a drop in the ocean, okay? And to get a visa, to get this paperwork to come to America, to even dream of it, I tell you what, people have no, I repeat myself, people have no idea how intense intense and just brutal it is to make it across the pond, even to go to Europe these days. Or these days you hear of Kenyans in Romania, Kazakhstan, Japan, people going to migrate to different countries with some, hopefully to get some greener pastures. America, coming to school here, or coming whatever, green card. We live in a world that is so brutal economically. And maybe this informs me of why this idea of juicing up, whatever it takes to get up the pyramid is very tempting. So even this idea of bringing integrity into the sport of athletics is an attempt. But I think the attempt might even be more, we can go deeper and more holistic. How do you create an environment for people to be able to self-rely and have a sense of dignity within the environment they live in, so they're not tempted to think of going out somewhere else and win that big chunk of money? Because even now in Kenya we have a government that has said, let's just export not raw material and add value to those raw material. No, let's export our young people, that they can go and be exploited, but they'll be at least be making some money. Can you believe that? Can you believe there's this idea of, let's export our talent because we cannot invest them here, because we've never created a structure or a system that can tap into their potential. Let's just export them to Bahrain, the Middle Eastern countries, export them to Europe, a deal with Germany where we're going to export young people there. Hopefully they get a job there, and hopefully they bring that money back to Kenya. It's a dream, my friend, because most of these things are done in the boardroom of madness, because there's no due diligence of how do we even come up with that idea of thinking it is okay to ship, for almost very chilling to say that they are shipping them for another modern way of slavery, really, because if you hear of stories coming from Middle East, how they take young people's passports after they arrive there, and they have nowhere to go except to serve the master. Whether they get paid or not, we have no idea until we see them on YouTube or TikTok. We have no idea their lives, their mental state, their physical state. We have no idea because they've been shut down in a cave somewhere where people is exploiting their labor and barely paying them. Again, so is it okay for them to stay in Kenya and just live in this poverty that they wake up to nothing? Don't ask me those questions, because I'm only highlighting the plight of young people. And so when you talk of scandals, when you talk of athletic scandals in doping, the environment in Kenya and the lack of job opportunities have created this kind of, that's why they mushroom. Where there's lawlessness, where there's no sense of dignity, when it is dog eat dog, when everything you do is it has no sense of dignity and there's no other way of looking at it, it creates a space where people can exploit each other just to get ahead. And so that as much as we enjoy watching athletics in Kenya, I've enjoyed that, I'm a product of that, something else is coming into play. Is this athletics going to give me an economic edge or economic benefit? Even for me, I went to school. I went a little bit semi-professional, so to speak, making some money because school was not enough. You have to wait 4 years, and hopefully after 4 years you get hired, maybe by McDonald's. Nobody's guaranteeing you a good job. So you live in this place whereby you have to balance the idea of yourself and your career and your family and yourself. So so that is the Kenya that I'm wrestling with. That's the Kenya I'm looking at from a distance. And I think the information from the ground tells me people are desperate. and in a desperate environment, a desperate system, in a desperate society, people do desperate things to make ends meet. Um, and athletics saved a lot of lives in Kenya. It's become a, 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 a way of life. People talk of you're from Kenya, so you run. Have you run Chicago Marathon? And yes, we've done very well, but now we have a new enemy. We have a new agent. We have a new Russian. So the Russians are coming and they are here with Kenya. So yeah, and then you have the temptations. You have the glamour of Olympics. You have the glamour of marathon and $100,000 if you win. Uh, so people weigh all those things and they say, maybe it's worth it. I'm not saying most people do, but now with this pandemic, it's like COVID-19. You didn't know who had COVID. You just walk around, put a mask on, people get vaccinated. This, when the ecosystem, when the environment is corrupted, is scandalous, is corrupt, it stirs up, it brings the worst of people. I'm not saying it's an ideal environment, I'm not saying it's an ideal country, but when a leadership, when a system fails to address the young people's issue, the Gen X's issue, and then they keep, all the people see in Kenya is people who are rich are getting richer. I think it's a global issue. It's a world over. It's all over the world. People start to revolt and they rebel and they do certain things that you'll be like, what might have happened was. So maybe that's where Kenya is, and I think we are in a crossroads in our country, athletic-wise, as a country. We saw the protest of breaching the parliament or storming it or attacking it, whatever you call it. People are restless, and in a restless environment, these things might bound to happen. And we the people sitting in the safety of my environment here might be speaking and I have no idea. Yes, I don't. And so when we hear of these scandals, these doping, this cheating, this corruption, it speaks to the larger picture of the country. The country is corrupt. So are the athletes. That is episode with me, the spokesperson for athletes. One way or another, I try. Be blessed, my friend.